You're listening to Somewhat Frank with me, Frank Gruber. After working in the corporate world for a decade, I decided to blaze my own path by co-founding Tech Cocktail, which helped catalyze local startup communities and eventually turned into TechCo Media, a site which grew to millions of readers and was eventually acquired. Over the past decade, I've interviewed hundreds of entrepreneurs and thought leaders from some of the fastest growing and most successful companies in history. And along the way, I've learned amazing lessons from my experiences. So we're going to talk about startups, tech, innovation, and their intersection with personal life, and anything else on Frank Gruber's mind. So let's get started being Somewhat Frank. Somewhat Frank is produced with the help of Established, my new company. Today, we are at a Las Vegas event showcasing innovation. And I'm here with Jen Consavo from Established, and we're here at AFWERX Challenge, which AFWERX is well, actually, Jen, you want to share what AFWERX is?
Sure. So AFWERX is a program that was created by the United States Air Force in order to foster innovation and really open up and collaborate with innovators around the world, try to create solutions to problems that the United States Air Force is faced with, and come up with solutions that might be much faster, cheaper, and more effective than they'd ever been able to create before.
Right. So the current process to kind of get something through procurement and get into the Air Force's hands is, what is that, like a 2 to 3 year process, and it's an RFP process, and so
it's long and very expensive.
Long and expensive, and the process is actually kind of a black box. The minute they put an RFP out there, they ask other companies and innovators to apply. The minute anyone applies, they can't talk to those companies anymore, right?
So it's the exact opposite of a collaborative experience. It's
right.
A lot of people in the tech world would call it like a waterfall experience, right? You just sort of put the specs out there and you throw it over the wall, and then a solution comes back at you, and you hope that by the time that actually happens, that the technology is still relevant, that the problem hasn't changed.
But it could change, right? So think about it, like
if it's a couple year-long process.
Right. Like think about it, like how many iPhones have been created in the last 3 years? And each year we get new things. Now in that situation, we get emojis that are our faces and new messaging, really deep innovations there. But I'm being a little, you know what I'm saying. Like it's more or less a situation where, in this situation, it's going to be things that are going to help save lives potentially. Where we're not talking about the next emoji. We're talking about maybe a new feature that allows haptic technology to help you better understand your surroundings by touch
When you're in combat.
right. With that caveat, I forgot to mention that part. It's not just getting a new face emoji. It's actually a touch to the face when you're fighting for the country. So more or less really important challenges that we're trying to help facilitate. And Jen and I are working with AFWERX. I should mention that as part of our work with Established and some of the things we do with innovation programs. And so this is one of them. And so we're excited to be here today and obviously look at some of these innovators. There's 30-something innovators here today from around the world. They basically have an open call out, right? So for this challenge, they had an open call out. Hundreds of companies applied, similar to kind of how we do our Startup of the Year program. And they got about 30-something companies, around 38, I think. Could be off, but about that. And they're all here today talking and showing off what they're doing in Las Vegas to other AFWERX and Air Force, members and personnel. And they're more or less getting a chance to pitch. And so they've been kind of talking and sharing their ideas, and then obviously showcasing here at this expo style event. And I want to just, Jen, talk about some of the companies that we've seen and some of the interesting ones that bubble up. I mean, obviously, they're all really interesting, or they wouldn't be here because they've been vetted by the folks at the Air Force and AFWERX. But you want to share some of them?
So for some context, this particular challenge is around redesigning the fixed-wing helmet. So the helmet that
the helmet doesn't have wings. That's not the challenge.
Right. But if you're flying in a fixed-wing plane, an aircraft,
you wear this helmet.
The helmet that they actually wear today is the same one that was designed over 40 years ago, back in the 70s.
Not that there's anything wrong with that. I know a lot of 40-year-olds that are amazing.
Right. But we evolve, and and this helmet needs to evolve too. So they put out their challenge, and the technology is here today. If you look around the room, you do see a lot of very interesting helmet companies.
Isn't 40 the new 20?
Yes, it is.
So basically, these are 20-year-old helmets.
So if you look around the room here, you do see a lot of helmet companies, and you see them from even some traditional companies like the Bell Racing Company, Bell helmets.
I have a Bell helmet.
Specialized, a lot of you know the Specialized bikes. They make helmets as well.
Right.
But there are a lot of littler known helmet companies here, and even some coming from as far as Australia.
Wow.
Who have invented a really innovative helmet that has a rear. It's a rear entry, so it actually pops up in the back, and it's really cool looking.
Kind of like, so it's basically like the car that has the door, the Tesla doors,
yes,
but it's like the Tesla
looks a
door
lot like that.
for a helmet.
It's really sleek and really
back.
cool.
But
aside from seeing a lot of the helmet technologies here, which are obviously designed to cushion and help protect someone's head like never before, we also see other technologies like communications and things that will help to monitor biometrics. Just some really neat things. Like imagine, some of this is kind of like from a sci-fi novel, but there's one technology here from a startup called Sonitis, which actually has a microphone communication device that sits in your mouth, in the rear of your mouth, sitting on the side of your molar.
Not the wisdom teeth, though. You got those pulled already.
Yeah, right. This sits right next to your molar, and it actually works with this bone conducting speaker so you literally hear the sound like it's in your head. And
you actually are hearing voices.
Yes, you're hearing the voices in your head,
like legitimately
through a microphone that sits on the side of your tooth. It's right out of a sci-fi novel, and it's real, and it works.
And you can't even see that you have it. You can't even see that you're active with it, right? So you could think about that. You could be wearing this helmet, not having anything bulky around, and you're hearing voices in your head that are being communicated through your tooth.
Right.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, and then there's technologies that fit right into the fibers of certain fabrics to actually strengthen them, make them impervious to moisture and
impact,
and bacteria and impact. Frank, what have you seen that you thought was interesting?
Well, I talked about it briefly at the beginning of the episode here, but more or less haptics. Let's talk about haptics. So there's a company over here,
Somatic Labs,
who has a band that goes on your forehead, and right now they're kind of demoing it in a different style, but more or less the idea is that it's going to have little kind of touch sensors around your entire head, and it'll be able to communicate certain things to you while you're in this case flying aircraft. It could be like touching the right side of your head means turn right, or left side left, but I don't think that's exactly how this could be used, because you won't even know which direction you're going at 3 Gs or whatever you're pulling.
Imagine your helmet actually has the ability to buzz your head in different places, or
about different things.
Yeah, tap your head in different ways. And to which each movement each haptic sense would communicate something
wasn't there
different.
Something about how actual touch is a better sense? Like you actually tell me, you know a little bit more about this.
Your skin is actually, think about
the biggest sensor.
Right. Yeah. So it's the largest organ you have on your body, and we don't use it.
Right.
And our sense of touch is extremely, and of feeling is extremely sensitive, and so it's this whole communication mechanism that we don't use.
Yeah, because you won't be able to hear certain things, well, unless you have that molar. You wouldn't be able to hear certain things.
Right.
So can you imagine if you now got haptics in your forehead, you're feeling things, and you're hearing things,
or the back of your head,
or wherever. So that's pretty interesting.
Although I will say there are a lot of noise canceling technologies here that are insanely good. So as much as we love our noise canceling technologies and our little tiny headsets with our iPhones, they're nothing compared to some of the technologies I've seen here, where they're creating these really, really loud background noises and completely able to isolate the voice that you need to hear. Right.
And I mean, there's companies that are basically emulating animals. So like there's one called Hedgemon, and it's taking a page out of the hedgehog book and creating
if there is a hedgehog book.
Apparently there's a hedgehog book. No, they're taking what hedgehogs have, which is these spiny back that allows them to kind of curl up and be okay if they fall or run into danger, right? And they're kind of applying that now to a helmet, which in this case, they're applying it to their core market right now has been football, right? You hear a lot about concussions, and they're working to kind of implement this inside of football helmets. But if you can imagine putting this kind of spine, kind of 3D printed spine technology inside of the helmet of a
and
airmen, it could help with concussions or whatever could happen if you were to hit your head, right? So and obviously that's the kind of angle they're going with that. But it's a really interesting company out of, I believe, Cleveland, Ohio. So companies from here are from everywhere. Jen, you mentioned one coming all the way from Australia.
Two of them here are from Australia. We've got companies from New York, Massachusetts, Ohio, Silicon Valley, basically you name it. I think one of them was from Tennessee.
Okay.
Got lots of companies.
Did we talk about Diwali? My memory's going, I guess, already.
Yeah.
Is there a memory app that we can
that's what we
plug
need.
in?
So two of the companies here, Diwali and Simple Sense. I'm probably getting that name wrong.
Here, yeah.
But they're both doing different types of biometrics. So
tell kind of brief version of what's biometric. What is a biometric?
Sure. Literally, these would become part of the helmet, and they would be able to tell you what's going on within the pilot. Right. Mm-hmm. So, is their heartbeat racing?
So, what's the pilot thinking or feeling?
No.
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 They can't read minds.
So we're trying to keep tabs on their health.
Okay,
right. So, are they having an issue with their heart? Are they suffering from hypoxia? Is there something going on that could be potentially put them endangered, right?
Yeah.
So that can be communicated directly from their helmet to somebody back in a command center.
Right. That's really cool. And so a lot of airmen here as well, checking things out. So that's pretty cool. Nellis Air Force Base is not too far from here, as well as Kretsch, which is, that's how you say it, right? Kretsch? Creech. I knew it was slightly off. My pronunciation was different. Sometimes I make my own pronunciation. That's fine. So anyway,
it's part of Frank's charm.
Call it what you will. So anyway, there's a lot of folks here from the U.S. Air Force, and it's pretty interesting. So we've been working with AFWERX and helping them with some of their challenges with this challenge, and yeah, it's been pretty interesting. I mean, I'm impressed with what's come out of it, and basically what they're in for is they could potentially get a prototyping contract, which would lead to potentially them getting a contract with the U.S. Air Force, which in general is a bigger endeavor and can take years. And so this would cut that time down, and that could be millions of dollars in contract from the government to be able to build out this further. So it starts with a prototype. That's what they're here for. They may, a couple of the companies, I don't know how many exactly yet, but they're all pitching right now for a chance to have private meetings tomorrow. And then obviously that could lead to even more. And it's a really great opportunity for a lot of these companies that large and small.
Yeah. And I think what's fascinating about their approach is someone from AFWERX shared with us a challenge they had. I think it was just a few weeks ago, and I can't get into the specific challenge, but it's a pretty big problem that affects a lot of airmen. So what they did was they took a whole bunch of folks and got them in the room, the people who actually deal with the problem, and some innovators, and they spent a week ideating and really working on the problem. And within a week, they've come up with a prototype that they believe is going to solve their problem, and within the next couple of months, it's actually going to be tested in the field, and they'll know, very quickly whether or not they've got a solution that is actually solving a problem that is hundreds of millions of dollars for the U.S. government. So that's going, that's taxpayer money. These are things that we want to support because this helps everybody. It helps specific people and their families and the health issues that they're dealing with. It helps save money.
But not to mention, it's taking something that's been done. This is the way we've done it forever, and trying to improve it. And that's, I think, new to this organization, as well as probably a number of others that have always had the get your head down and keep working kind of a mentality. And you see that not just in government, but you see it in a lot of big organizations as well.
Right.
So that's pretty cool. So anyway, we're excited to be working with them and continue to better tell the story here. Not to mention, we love cool companies, and we've seen a bunch of them here, so it's pretty fun. We also had a chance to sit down and talk to somebody from AFWERX, Mr. Bobby Mack. He leads up some of the marketing efforts at AFWERX, and wanted to ask him to share a little bit more about the program and what he's most proud of.
Absolutely, Frank. So really what's going on here today is exactly what AFWERX kind of embodies, is bringing together your innovators, your startup communities, your small businesses, medium-sized businesses, and connecting that group with the DoD government Air Force side that has the program requirement or the needs that need to be met here. And so it's just really great to see those two groups coming together in an unclassified setting and being able to talk tech, being able to talk about the technology for the next generation helmet that they're implementing and putting forth here today before the judging panel.
What's the most interesting thing you've seen so far, just with like some of the interactions you've been bouncing in and out? I wanted to get your take of, have you seen any like really cool things happen here yet?
Yeah, absolutely. Primarily seeing the companies speak about just the process here has been really great to see. The way that AFWERX does the challenge process is much different than traditional acquisitions in the Air Force. And so to see them light up and talk about the process of the AFWERX challenge and just everything from the problem definition workshops to the crowdsourcing platform, AFWERXspigot.com, to then coming here to showcase at Enclave Las Vegas is just so foreign to traditional government acquisition process that it's really blown them away. A lot of startup companies, innovators and entrepreneurs are hesitant to work with the DoD and military and government because of the rules and regulations and just the stifling around innovation that takes place. And so being able to come to AFWERX and innovate in a new, exciting way has a lot of people really encouraged and really motivated to work with the government.
Okay, that's great. And I definitely see that energy out there. You see a lot of airmen here and connecting with the different companies. So just one final thought, like what's your perfect scenario / success for this particular challenge and then ultimately the program?
Absolutely. So, at the end of the day, here at AFWERX, if we're not delivering tools to the warfighter faster, then we're not doing our job. So really what I would like to see is contracts being given after this event. So, there's 37 teams here today, and not all of them have to get contracts, but there's some amazing technology, and seeing just a few of them or a handful or maybe even a majority, we'll see what the judging panel comes up with. But there's a lot of different components that are, just amazing technologies that could be implemented into a helmet. And I'm hoping that a majority of them will end up with government contracts that will lead to the next generation of helmets that our warfighter can use.
Well, that's a wrap. Thanks so much for listening. This is Somewhat Frank, signing off. Frank Gruber. Oh, and don't forget, subscribe online, iTunes, SoundCloud, Android, wherever you can find it. Somewhat Frank Podcast. We'll be back soon with another episode. Thanks so much.